So I have to tell you this story. I'm driving to your house today.
Oh,
right?
okay.
It's all freeway. It's like a cool 55 to 60 the whole way. And these jackasses go flying by me at like 80 miles an hour. There's two of them. And, I thought to myself, I'm like, those guys are badasses. They are so cool. I want to high five them. It's fucking awesome.
Okay.
Not really. I think they're jackasses. I just hate when people go flying by you. It scares me.
Yeah. I remember one time I was like driving on a highway and there was a ton of fog that night. It was really bad. You could barely see anything, When you have really dense fog, when you turn on the lights, it's still like, it almost makes it worse to see.
Ominous.
And I saw this guy fly past like 20 miles per hour. And I'm like, how does that guy even see where he's going? I'm like, I hope he gets pulled over.
Smart.
Right? And then like 5 minutes later, I see him on the side of the road and a cop has him pulled over. Like,
there's no better feeling.
Karma.
There's no better feeling.
I wanted to like flip him off while I went by,
Yeah. I love watching people get pulled over. They go speeding by. You're like, I always honk the horn a little bit. Meep, meep.
You
like,
just hear it slowly
caught.
come in. Phew.
It's so great. I love it. Anyway, welcome back to The Abyss, everybody. Sorry we've been gone another week. Had another exposure to COVID, as it is this year.
It's so funny because it seems like I don't go out a lot, and when I go out, I'm not in a big group of people. I kind of keep it pretty, what do you call it?
Pretty small, pretty secluded.
Yeah, secluded group of people. And I swear, every time I go out, somehow I have interacted with someone that was exposed to COVID prior without their knowledge.
So what have we learned, Cleet?
I'm still going out, man. I
You
have
don't
to.
leave the house.
Just never leave the house.
You never leave the house. I mean, speaking of which, though, Utah went under a pretty crazy lockdown because we're having record cases every single day.
Yeah, it's those
kind of a
darn Rocky Mountains keeping all the COVID in the valley.
Goddamn sketchy. I don't know. I think everyone's just going to have it at some point in time. It's pretty unavoidable.
I wouldn't
at this
be
point.
surprised if I have gotten it, and maybe it just wasn't that bad because I have gotten sick in the last like couple of months, like a cough. Or there was a couple nights where like super, what do you call it?
Congested.
Yeah, there was a couple nights I've been super congested, not lately, but I just kind of attributed it to the changes of the season, right? Because I always feel like I get sick when it gets really cold.
I think that's the common denial everyone has when they're getting sick. It's getting colder. It's just them allergies. It's like, all right, I mean, probably, but let's think about what it really could be.
Bleeding out of my eyes. I just need eye drops. It's okay.
Can't taste
I don't need
anything.
to see a doctor. Shut up.
I can't taste anything. I think my tongue's just allergic to something. Makes total sense. But yeah, just don't go out anymore. Just don't risk it. Every time you go out, I get a text that says, "Dude, I went out and I hung out with this one person. They were exposed. So sorry."
COVID alert. COVID alert.
It's basically all we hear on the phones.
Speaking of COVID alert.
That was pretty good. But I don't know why you said COVID alert. We're not drinking
I don't know
COVID.
how there's like a transition there. I just really wanted to drink a beer.
That's fair. And this is a Nitro Polygamy Porter by Wasatch Brewery. That's a good pick, Cleet. It's a good pick.
I'm going to take a sip. God, that is smooth.
Really, really good. I enjoy it.
One thing about Utah that is rarely ever said, whenever you meet someone outside of Utah, they're always like, oh, you like Jell-O and you're Mormon. Ha, 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 ha,
Jell-O, I'm not aware of that.
Oh, yeah, dude, we are the #1 state in the consumption of Jell-O. You didn't know that?
I haven't had Jell-O in so long.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that.
I did when I was a kid. My grandma loved making Jell-O. But we have a lot of craft brewing here.
Which is weird because we have the strangest liquor laws in
They've gotten better, thank God. We can have heavy beers is what we'd call it. Nobody knows what that means outside of Utah, but we used to only we had less alcoholic beers essentially for the last like 30 years.
The highest was 3%, 3.5% I think is what we could have.
Well, so for some reason in Utah we'd do it by weight while everyone does it by volume.
Right.
So we were 4% by volume, where I think everyone else is like 5.2 or something.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
All I know is that every time I went to visit my aunt and uncle in Arizona, we just get there and start drinking. And after 2, I'm like, good God, did you drug me? I'm feeling weird because it's just the alcohol content you have. It's like here you have to down a 12-pack to feel a slight buzz.
Yeah, and we can't buy liquor on Sundays.
Cannot do that. Nope. But they built a liquor store by our house, which I'm super excited for. I don't know when it opens.
It's
but
pretty legit.
It's amazing. I just want to be able to buy liquor in Smith's.
I always feel like the liquor stores here are like banks. They put them in like the worst location possible. It's like, it's such a pain in the ass to get in there and get out.
Any new movies this week, Cleet?
No, I haven't watched anything.
Nothing. Okay, so a boring week. I started... So they have these video games that are called the Dark Pictures Anthology. It's like an interactive movie, It's like horror based, and you can choose all the dialogue options. I started playing the second one. It's pretty amazing.
So it's like a Goosebumps book where you can kind of choose where you go in the text.
Yep, you can choose the dialogue options or where your character goes, and they can all die at any time. There's 5 of them. They can die at any time, or you can keep them all alive. So I've been playing that. It's pretty good.
It sounds interesting.
It's very, very good. But also, before we move on, I have a present for you, Cleet.
Uh-oh.
It's actually something my wife made, too. So there you go, buddy. Open up.
Oh, what is this?
What is it?
Hell? My God, it's a hoodie. It's a nice one, too. Shit. Entering the Abyss, a podcast.
Yeah, it's a Enter the Abyss podcast hoodie, bro.
Damn, thank you, man.
Same one I'm wearing. It's covered in lint for some
I'll
reason.
have to go out during COVID and advertise this podcast.
Yeah, so now you can go out when it's cold with your holy shirt, and you can get COVID wearing our sweatshirt.
Thanks, man. That's really nice of you guys.
You are welcome.
Yeah.
My wife has a Cricket, so she makes like these cool little, shirts and stuff, and it's like the shot glass and beer mug I gave you. So yeah, it's a little something there. And hopefully we can start giving merchandise to everybody, or selling it at least. But we'll have to get a little bit more notorious.
A little bit more of a following.
A little bit more. We'll see. We'll get there eventually, though, I think. Okay, but
So-
I think.
Topics tonight.
Oh snap! What do we got in store?
I'm doing the horrible death of Hisashi Ouchi.
Ouchi. Ouchi?
Close enough. It's Japanese.
Ouchi. Okay.
And it was a horrible death.
I'm kind of nervous to talk about it, but I'm talking about Dennis DePue.
Interesting.
Does that name ring a bell?
DePue rings a bell.
DePue. Okay.
Sounds familiar.
We'll talk about it a little bit more because I'm curious what you think when.
Before we jump into this, I'm just going to do a quick disclaimer. A little gory, I guess. It might be a cringy episode.
Oh.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me that before. I'm
God,
excited.
I felt dirty doing this research.
You have to take a shower.
Oh, no.
See, the thing is, like, it's got a little bit, but, like, I guess you're going all out. So, cool. I'm excited for yours. But I think I'll start, if it's all the same with you.
Yep.
I think I'll go first. Okay, so I have a question for you, Cleet. So, think about early 2000s, first couple years in 2000, right, 2001. Think of, like, a horror movie that you saw in that time.
The Ring.
Okay, another one.
The Grudge.
Another one.
It's just weird to like try to go 20 years back and think of what falls within that range. I don't know.
Okay, have you seen the movie Jeepers Creepers?
Oh yeah.
Do you like it?
Jeepers Creepers.
Where'd you get those peepers?
I liked the first one, but
That's
I feel
what I'm
like
talking
the
about.
sequels just kind of messed the lore up.
Yeah.
I hope they just kind of restart the franchise.
Forget the sequels, the first one. What were your thoughts? Out of your Cleet 5 stars, what would you rate it?
I give it a good 4 out of 5.
Okay, cool. I'm almost at a 5. That's one of my favorite movies I've ever had. But what if I were to tell you that the story of Jeepers Creepers had a little bit of truth behind it?
I wouldn't believe you.
Okay, well, that is the story of Dennis DePue, actually. Now, it's kind of... we'll talk about it a little bit, and we'll see how you feel about it. But if you haven't seen Jeepers Creepers, if you're out there, you haven't seen it, the original, the sequels sucked, especially the third one. Don't even watch it. Stop what you're doing right this second and go watch it. It's arguably one of the best horror movies I've ever seen. But anyway, we're going to talk about this. So Dennis DePue was a 46-year-old property assessor and was married to Marilyn, who was 48 at the time and was a Coldwater High School guidance counselor.
Was he like swapping out eyeballs in his spare time?
Spoiler alert. No, not quite. We're not quite that realistic. Or not quite that in relation. They were married for several years, and together they raised 3 beautiful children. Tension in the marriage grew, and Dennis became distant and often accused Marilyn of turning the kids against him.
There's always those family dynamics, though. Makes sense. When you were a kid, did you ever go like, you'd be like, hey, Mom, can I go sleep over at my friend's house? She'd say no, and you'd be like, oh, hey, Dad, what's going on? Can I have a sleepover at my friend's house?
Yeah, see, my roles were reversed. My dad always said no. My mom always said yes.
My dad always said yeah. My mom would get so mad.
No, my mom was the yes person in there. My dad was a no man, as I called him, so I never asked my dad anything. He always said no. But yeah, so I agree, though. There's always those family dynamics. It's always one or the other. It seems like it's kind of a difference, but it kind of holds the balance, right? So Marilyn often confided in friends, coworkers, and family that she was unhappy in her marriage and she wanted a divorce. Where do you think this is going, Cleet?
Sounds like my ex-wife. I'm just kidding. A divorce?
Okay. Probably. I mean, she wants a divorce. Let's say that. After 8 long years of marriage, Marilyn filed for divorce and told her attorney that Dennis was only there to control their lives and would refuse to let her make decisions on her own. But, yeah, I mean, so she's feeling very controlled, and she's like, no, I want out of it. I'm done. Dennis found out about the divorce, right? And now he is worried that his control is going to be taken away, so he does everything he can to keep the marriage. He started acting nice. He's going to, like, hang out with the kids. He's out in the backyard playing toss. He's trying to build this marriage back up, right? Like, nothing else.
Just a healthy reaction to a bad scenario.
Exactly. It's like, yo, fuck you. Oh, I want a divorce. Oh, no.
Hey,
don't.
you look good.
Hey,
you
pal.
lose some weight? That's a good outfit. You have good taste.
Did you get new eyebrows? Let's go play catch, Timmy. It's always like trying to fix something. Now, look, I as a kid, my parents got divorced, so I've been through that whole thing. It's awkward. It's difficult and bouncing back and forth. It's a terrible dynamic. And when I was young and they told us they were getting divorced, I remember we went to like a concert and we saw Creed. Do you remember Creed? We saw Creed in concert. It was for the Olympics that were here.
I've never listened to him. I just remember when I was a kid at school, someone like carved Creed into the desk. I'm like,
man, they were a fan.
I wonder who they are.
They liked Creed. But we were at a concert and I kept looking at my parents. They already like filed for divorce. I'm like, come on, get back together. Because I just didn't want my family to be torn apart. That's my childhood. And I had a lovely childhood. So anyway, despite his best attempts, though, Dennis was unable to save the marriage and the divorce was finalized in December of 1989. Dennis was granted bi-weekly visitation of the kids, but they often voiced concerns about spending any time with him. They're like, no, I don't want to go with Dad. I don't want to do it. So obviously not a very good dynamic. He's, his wife's afraid of him. His kids are afraid of him. Like, just give up, dude.
That's so sad.
Oh, man. Good old.
I mean, unless he's a creep and a terrible person, but
well, I mean,
break my heart.
Let's just say there is a reason I'm talking about this guy on our family-friendly, happy podcast here.
Yes.
Now, Dennis was given access to the guest house that he would often use for his office space, and this led others to believe it was just him desperately trying to keep hold of his family, keep that control, right? He's like, you ain't going to kick me out. I'm going to go use the guest house for my office, air quotes. Marilyn went as far as changing all the locks in the home, but Dennis, the little bugger, continued to find ways in. She would get home from work or running errands, and he'd just be lounging on the couch as if nothing's wrong. Just sitting there watching TV, drinking a beer. It's like, hey, honey. She's like, no, we're divorced. Get the hell out of here. Like, what would you do? Roles reversed. Like, you get a divorce, you change all the locks, you come home, your wife's just sitting on the couch, lounging, hanging out, eating a frozen burrito.
It's, I don't know. Dynamics are different when it's a chick or a dude, Because,
Okay.
like,
I mean, I get it, yeah.
It's less creepy when it's, like, the gal, But in her situation, that's creepy as fuck.
Yeah, he's just finding ways in. I don't know if he's, like, getting in through the window or if he's shooting down the chimney like good old Santa. He's getting into the house somehow. On Easter Sunday of April 15th, 1990, Dennis shows up to pick up the older of the two children as the youngest daughter, Julie, had already refused to go with him. She's like, nope, I'm not going with Dad. So he comes to get the older two kids. He comes inside, his son's sitting there playing around. He's like, hey, let's go. And his oldest son, Scott, starts to voice concern again about going with his father. So he starts to get pissed off, like, why are my kids not wanting to go with me? So he, like, grabs his son and starts, like, pulling him, like, outside. Like, hey, we're going outside. Whether you like it or not, you're going to come hang out with me. So Marilyn obviously interjects and tries to talk with him. He became violently angry and verbally abusive towards her. Like, just starts screaming at her in front of the kids, right?
Sounds like a controlling guy.
Yeah. I mean, he just wants control. What's wrong with that?
You're coming with me.
So he then grabs Marilyn and shoves her down the stairs, just like throws her down the stairs, okay? That's not all. So she's at the bottom of the stairs, and when she concludes this long, painful fall, he goes down there and starts to beat the bejesus out of her, just starts wailing on her, punching her, kicking her in front of the kids. Like, the kids are begging him to stop. Like, stop, stop. And he's just wailing on her, right? And she's, like, bleeding from her nose, and I think they dislocated a leg or something.
Jesus.
So anyway, the oldest daughter runs to the neighbor's house to call the police because she's like, okay, he's going to kill her if I don't stop. When Dennis had his fill of beating his wife, he carries her up the stairs and tells the kids that he's going to take her to the hospital. It's going to be all right. He's going to go get her checked and everything's going to be good, right?
Yeah, I believe that.
Okay.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah. I mean, he wants to control her well-being. He's going to take her to the hospital. Obviously, the hospital was the last place Dennis was going, so when they never showed up, a widespread search was underway for the DePues. The DePues.
So the whole family just disappeared?
No, so the kids are still there.
Okay.
But the dad tells the kids he's taken Marilyn, the wife, to the hospital. And so when
he just never comes back.
Well, yeah. So the neighbors calling the police, and so she comes back and they say, "Oh, my dad's taking my mom to the hospital." They go to the hospital. They never arrive. So they're going, "Oh, where the hell are they?" So now there's a search for her because they think that she's in danger after being beaten and thrown down the stairs. I think that's a fair assumption. So he decides he's going to load up in the car, and he just decides he's going to take a trip. So he goes down the desolate back roads of Michigan. Meanwhile, a brother and sister named Ray and Marie Thornton are taking a casual trip down the back roads of Michigan like they do every single weekend, where out of nowhere, this crazy van just blows past them like a bat out of hell. Now, they notice, all they are able to pick up on the license plate is that it starts with the letters GZ. That's all they can get, because he just goes fucking flying past them, right? In the van, obviously, is Dennis. We know this. So he came across a church, and he thinks, oh, hey, this is perfect. I'm going to go ahead and pull over and dispose of the evidence here.
At a church?
At a church. The back of a church, right? So he pulls over, and he gets out. And while he's getting out and doing what he's doing, Ray and Marie Thornton, again, are driving by the scene at this point in time. So what they witness is him holding a bloody sheet out of the van and like dumping it in the back of the church. So Jeepers
following
Creepers.
The plot of Jeepers
Yeah,
Creepers.
exactly.
It's so funny.
So he dumps this sheet, and so Marie, right, the sister's like, I think that's a bloody sheet that he's dumping back there. And the guy's
Was
like,
there a well?
Whatever.
Was there a well, Britain, that he threw?
They didn't talk about a well, unfortunately. I think that part was a little fabricated. But anyway, so they keep driving, and they're like, oh, my God, that's the van that sped past us, right? Now, first, when you see something like that, you don't just automatically jump to the worst. I mean, maybe you do, but if you saw like a bloody sheet, you're like, oh, it's a murder. Maybe it's just he had a ketchup party. I don't know. He ate a bunch of French fries and was throwing away the sheet in the back of the van.
Hang on. Real quick. I don't want to interrupt. So you never went to the last house I rented out, but in the garage, there was this attic space. Just in the garage itself.
Okay.
And there's
like a storage space.
Built-in ladder. And there's all the insulation was up there. So one of those days I went up there to go check it out. And I kid you not, there was like this red sheet up there. A red-white sheet. You know?
Oh, so it's like a white sheet with red or red with white?
It looked like blood-stained sheets at first. In the very back. And there was an empty liquor bottle.
Oh.
And I pulled it out. Because at first I thought, like what the hell did I just find? And I pulled it out, and then I looked at it, and it was just not red enough to look like actual blood. I'm like, this just looks like paint. But at first, dude, the hair on my neck was standing up.
Well, I mean, typically when blood dries, it goes a little bit more brown.
It was pink.
Okay.
Yeah. So
well, maybe they were just low in iron or something. I don't know how it works.
I loved how there was a liquor bottle up there.
That is cool. Like,
I'm pretty sure they put it there on purpose.
He was just sanitizing his wounds. They like cut his leg off or something and just cauterized it and sanitized it with some vodka. But now I remember you telling me that story. I don't know what I'd do if I found like a bloody sheet in my attic. I'm like, yeah, we're moving. Okay, so anyway, so the brother and sister, they keep going. It wasn't until Dennis hops back in his van and starts tailing them, like driving. This is exactly like Jeepers Creepers, the opening scene, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Because they come across someone dumping, now like you said, it's like he's dumping a body-shaped object down a well in the back of a church, and then he hops in his like big old beater and he's like chasing him down and ramming him down. Anyway, Dennis follows them several miles until finally Ray decides to pull off of the highway. Okay, so anyway, yeah, so this should seem, again, familiar to those who have seen the 2001 film Jeepers Creepers, because this is exactly how the movie opens. Now, there's a few differences, as Dennis wasn't a bloodthirsty creature who reappears every 23 years for 23 days, but rather a very aggressive husband who wanted to be single. That's all he wanted.
He wanted control.
He wanted control. But the crazy thing is, the similarity is the real-life brother and sister were playing the license plate game, which they were playing in the Jeepers Creepers, right? Because they were like trying to guess what the license plate said. So they were playing that same exact game. The director of the film, however, named Victor Salva, never cited the DePue case as inspiration, but it's kind of hard to argue that he didn't get some kind of inspiration from it.
A lot of coincidences.
A lot of coincidences. Coincidences? A lot of coincidences.
Balcony.
Walk out balcony.
I can't even do it anymore.
they get off the road, right? Now they notice just a little bit later, the van starts to pull off to the side of the road. So the brother and sister decide, let's go check it out, because that's smart. That's smart, right? So they drive by and they notice that Dennis is changing the license plate. He's unscrewing the license plate, he's putting something on, and the passenger door is open. The sister looks to the door and says that she can see blood splattered all over the passenger side door. So she starts freaking out and is like, hey, we need to go back to the church to see what this was.
You call the cops.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. It's like a horror movie. They do the stupidest shit.
Let's split up.
Split up. I'm going to walk to the van.
I'm going to go talk to Dennis. You go drive there. You keep the gun and go back to the church.
Should we fill up our gas tank? We're on E. No, we'll make it. We're good. So they turn around and they start to drive back to the church. Now they get out of the car, they walk to the back, and they notice a bloody sheet that's like stamped into an animal hole in the back. And so the guy's like, oh yeah, that's definitely blood. So they then call the police at this point. Like that's what it took for them to call the police, right? Because they're like, something really bad happened here. Police get there, they seal off the whole area, they analyze the tire tracks, they discover that they did in fact belong to Dennis's van, and the blood on the sheet did belong to his wife, Marilyn. Right? Good old police work. Love the detective work. But they didn't have a body at the time, so it's really hard to convict someone without a body, right?
Where did he hide it at the church? Like, where'd it go?
So that's the thing, he just dumped the sheet, so I think he still has the body.
Ooh.
Now, the next day, Marilyn's body was found by some highway workers on a deserted road. She had been shot in the back of the head. So he tells the kids he's taking her to the hospital. He just goes out, shoots her in the back of the head, and then dumps her on the road.
That's sad, man.
Yeah. And the thing is, they didn't really talk about what happened to the kids after because they're still pretty young. Like, the oldest one was in their teen years. The other ones were, like, younger. But, like, they never talked about what happened after. Several days later, Dennis sent several strange letters to friends and family that attempted to justify Marilyn's death.
I could totally see that. Because, like, he's so messed up in the head, you know?
Yeah. He's like, no, it wasn't my fault. When all was said and done, he sent a total of 17 letters postmarked in Virginia, Iowa, and Oklahoma. One letter that he addressed to his coworker stated something along the lines of Marilyn having several opportunities to treat him fairly and with respect, and how when you lose your wife and kids, you have nothing left. He was too old to start over.
She was pitting the kids against me. I had no other choice.
She had several opportunities to treat me with respect, man. I had to do it. It's her fault. I guess she sent a letter to Marilyn's friend that was saying that it was the neighbor's fault that he killed her, not his. He never took responsibility. He's just like, she needed to die. Typical psychopath. So the crazy thing is the case was actually aired on television on March 20th, 1991 on the show Unsolved Mysteries.
Yes,
Did you ever watch Unsolved Mysteries?
Please tell me it was Unsolved Mysteries. That was my favorite show as a kid.
So it was on Unsolved Mysteries, again, March 20th, 1991. That was 7 months before I was born, man.
Dang.
You were like 2 years old, I think, at that time.
That was like my favorite show as a kid, not even kidding.
They brought it back on Netflix.
Yeah, I was actually, during that COVID night, I was watching an episode
there
on
you
that.
go.
The UFO one. Ugh.
Yeah, so it gets kind of crazy, right? So the night of the broadcast, the night they broadcast this episode at like 8:30 p.m., a woman named Mary arrives home from work in Dallas, Texas, okay? Upon entering her house, her boyfriend Hank Queen was packing up to leave in a frenzy, saying that he had to leave immediately since his mother was sick. Who's this Hank guy? I don't know. Oddly suspicious.
Dennis.
Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. He asked her to make him some sandwiches for the road because he had to leave. Like, very specifically, make me some sandwiches. It's a long drive.
How controlling.
I'm not even going to go there with the jokes. Every time she attempted to watch the the television's in the living room, right? So every time she walked in there, he would like distract her, like, no, I need my sandwiches. Help me pack, and like brought her out because I think Unsolved Mysteries is playing on the TV.
Why didn't you just change the channel?
That was my question. I don't understand, but like he's literally like, it's still playing, and he's like, no, go make me some sandwiches, woman. I need to go on the road. Hank seemed to distract her and ask for help in packing several times, so she started to get a little paranoid, like what's going on? A few minutes later, they walk outside. He gives her like a small peck, and then she's like, well, give me a hug. And so she hugs him, and then he peels off in his van. She's like, oh, that's weird. And in the Unsolved Mystery episode, she's like, I felt like I would never see him again. I had a suspicion. It's like, it's kind of a weird thing to say. And she's all chipper about it.
It's probably happened to her before.
Right. So I didn't catch what you said until after I agreed. Is it right? She's like, my man just keep leaving. They always ask me to make them a sandwich, and they just peel off. I don't get it.
I never see him again.
I'm never making a sandwich for any man. Later that evening, she goes back inside, right? She's like, oh, that's weird. Hopefully his mom's doing okay. She discovers the episode and discovers that Hank, who is actually Dennis DePue using an alias, was wanted for murder of his ex-wife. Well, not quite ex, because they never actually did the divorce.
Yeah.
She figured that he had stumbled upon the channel and decided to hightail it out of town to avoid being caught. So she calls a friend. This friend calls the police and gives them the license plate number to Dennis's van. Louisiana state troopers came across the van and attempted to pull him over, but he's like, nah, you're not taking me. So he books it, right? He had led them on a 15-minute high-speed chase through Mississippi, breaking through 2 police barricades. So this van has got to be supercharged like in Jeepers Creepers.
It's still his wife's fault. She could have given him respect.
She had several opportunities. Had she not turned the kids against him and just given him some damn respect?
And, I kind of, the neighbor's probably the bad guy in this situation, too.
Which neighbor?
Didn't he say, he blamed it on the neighbor?
Oh, all the neighbors. It was
all the
fault.
neighbors.
The whole neighborhood was at
They were
fault.
against him, pitting the kids against him.
This wife just turned everyone against him. He was alone, man. He just asking for help. So anyway, he busts through 2 police barricades. Police were then able to fire at his back tires, causing him to stop the van. So he shoots 2 slugs through the windows at the cop, and then 1 more outside the open window before turning the gun on himself, committing suicide.
Well, I guess there are happy endings.
So, so that's the story of Dennis DePue, the real-life Jeepers Creepers man.
You know what's funny?
What's up?
His life ended in a pew.
Oh, you got jokes about suicide. That's always heartwarming.
Yeah, I'm a good guy.
Pew, pew, DePue. Oh, anyway, so it was. I figured Jeepers Creepers came up, and my aunt actually told me about this, and she's like, "Hey, there's a real guy that inspired it." But the filmmaker said it wasn't, but I find that hard to believe. It's just too similar.
It's interesting, very interesting.
But anyway, so I'm really kind of eager to get into this one though because of the forewarning you said about the gore. So
yeah. You remember how a radioactive spider bit Peter Parker and turned him into a superhero?
Yeah, I'm guessing this guy didn't get that same treatment.
Nope. He went the normal route.
You got Eric Bana who turned into the Hulk.
Yeah, like the Hulk. Didn't happen to him. No.
Sorry, Eric Bana is the actor. I meant Bruce Banner.
I knew.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into the horrible death of Hisashi Ouchi. I'm probably gonna butcher that all night. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna repeat it. Anyways, so in earlier episodes that we've had, we've kind of talked about the best possible outcome to say your hard goodbye. When you leave this earth in your ethereal form, and mine's always been some type of hot tub time machine.
Drinking
very
a beer.
peaceful. But I think that we could all agree in the human experience, there's always something that in the back of our mind bothers us, and it's the idea of having a painful death, whether it's being eaten by wolves or some other horrific death. I mean, what do you think would be the worst way to die, Britton?
God, that's a stupid question. I don't know. The worst way to die? Being dragged by horses? I don't know. There's so many ways that would be shitty to die. Drowning, burning, freezing, falling to your death, suffocation, being buried alive, being peeled, all your skin being peeled off, asphyxiation, several things. I don't know.
Okay, this one's worse.
This one's worse.
Yeah, every single one that you said, this one's worse.
Radiation, that's among them. Anything that's slow and torturous, any poison that just delays the death process would suck.
Let's jump into this. Hisashi was a worker at the JCO plant, a nuclear plant and nuclear processing facility in Tokyo, Japan. The date was September 30th, 1999. He was pouring a uranium solution from a bucket to a precipitation tank.
I know exactly what that means. This is a good start. All good stories start with dumping some uranium.
This is a routine task for him, and he dumps a lot of these buckets. And while he was pouring the 7th bucket of solution, for whatever reason, a loud bang was heard, and a bright blue light came from the tank. This was a result of something called a nuclear criticality. In an instant, the room was flooded with neutron beams, the strongest form of radiation known to man.
Oh, I think he'll be all right. I think he's going to be okay.
You know, it's funny. I'm a nerd. I've heard a lot of situations where there's been like a criticality when it comes to nuclear things. There's something called the Devil's, I think it's the Devil's Tower. There was this thing in the school where they would have like these little bricks and they had plutonium in the middle of it, and they would kind of like make a tower. And if you ever covered it, it would start to go critical. And this guy would just play around with it. And one time, he would play around with it with a screwdriver.
There's always one guy. It's
an
like,
educated
I'm gonna fuck with this thing.
And he fucked up. And it was with a classroom of kids. And they all say about seeing a sea of blue. So apparently when there's like a nuclear criticality, it gives off a blue light. Pretty interesting.
So if you just see a random blue light, you're screwed.
Yeah. It depends on how close you are. So generally, these people that are very close to this criticality die within a few days. Nuclear radiation is no joke. I mean, you get burn marks, you puke, and you die. But anyways.
That's very specific. You puke, you die.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if you don't puke. So Hisashi was standing over the tank at the time, and his body absorbed an extreme dose of radiation in a matter of seconds. People actually speculate that he was given a dose of radiation that no other person has ever received.
Wow. So that's like a moderate to severe dose of radiation.
Yeah. Instead of dropping dead, he was okay.
Oh.
Yeah, like normally people would just die. Like straight up, people would literally just drop dead within a few seconds.
I just imagine people looking at him like,
yeah,
dude, you should be dead.
So
like, are you okay?
The blue light disappears. He's like, oh, okay. So he evacuates the area, goes to the changing room, and he's like, okay. And then he feels like he's fine, but then he starts to feel nauseous, and he starts to puke, and he just drops to the ground and loses consciousness.
Ooh.
Right there, he dies, done. The end.
False.
I'm kidding.
False.
So we'll kind of go into this later, but what happened in that instant is his DNA just melted.
He just lost his DNA. It's gone.
Evaporated. Right? No, like it's gone. Every chromosome in his body, gone.
I'm trying to imagine how that would even happen or what would be the outcome of said thing.
Well, you're going to find out. Hisashi was also the first person in Japan to ever been affected by a criticality event. It's happened to a lot of people in the world, but he was the first one in Japan. And just to kind of be a spoiler warning here, he kind of became a living experiment till the end of his life by the Japanese medical industry and the Japanese government. Oh. Not that they're horrible people, but they might be because of this incident.
So you're this medical anomaly now, this scientific anomaly. They're not trying to help you now. It's just like, how many fucking tests can we get on you before you die?
Oh, man.
Like,
wow.
Poking, prodding, probing.
It's funny you say that because experts around the country came down here to study him and give him treatment that would prolong his life. Just to study the effects of radiation. It wasn't a benevolent focus here. It definitely wasn't for his interests, if that makes sense.
Right. No, I get it. So, I mean, it's like, they're not trying to keep him alive to keep him alive. It's like, how much more can we get out of you before you die a horrible death?
Yeah.
Fucking bullshit.
So he was airlifted to the National Institute of Radiological Sciences and placed in a private room. So I'm going to show you a picture of him when he was admitted to the hospital. Are you ready?
And I'm guessing this will be on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm going to put this one on YouTube.
Not the other one.
Not the other one.
Okay. Ooh.
Right here. That's him. So how do you feel about him? Does he look like he's about to die?
He looks completely normal, but
I
don't like how you're prefacing this because this is making me very nervous.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably going to be fine. Give him a week. He'll leave the hospital,
Wow.
As Britton was saying, this picture, he looks like he's completely unharmed. There's no visible burns or signs of discomfort. Doctors remarked that at that moment, his eyes looked a little red, and he complained about pain in his hand, but otherwise looked quite well. For the first week, he didn't really show any signs of external illnesses. The hand, which had been closest to the nuclear reaction, was a little bit more swollen and red. His belly started to swell, suggesting that his intestines were beginning to fail. So that was like the first little symptom. And, I kind of did a little bit of a Google research on this because I thought that was a little bit interesting. It's an important point because your intestines tend to regenerate because they break down so often. So these cells specifically are replaced in your body about within 4 to 5 days.
Right.
At least the cell lining in your intestines.
See, I'm having a hard time because, you still have these pictures up, and I'm seeing one specifically that says this photo may show violent or graphic content, and I'm nervous that's the one you're going to uncover, and I don't know what's going to be there. I'm super fucking nervous.
Well, you'll find out in a minute. So again, this is an important thing to point out about the intestines, because for some reason, his intestines aren't regenerating. They're just breaking down. He still is in good spirits, and he's unaware of the grisly future he's about to have. And he's joking with the nurses like, oh, hey,
Can't wait to go home.
Yeah, everything's great.
My hand kind of hurts.
He keeps talking about getting better and going home and seeing his family. But they end up doing a test. So they do these micrograph images, and they were taken from his bone marrow, which revealed the state of his body internally. They got images from this of his chromosomes, and they were completely unrecognizable from another human being. They've never seen anything like it.
What the hell? So he's not even human anymore, really.
Well, he still is. Just has to do with cell replication. So as we know, chromosomes contain the genetic information that tell each of your cells, that tell all of your cells in your body how to replicate. Humans have 23 pairs generally of identifiable chromosomes, but in Hisashi's body, none of the chromosomes were identifiable. Each had been broken apart or fused unnaturally with another chromosome pair. So when I was looking into this, I was like, oh, so he could become the Hulk. No, that's not what happened.
This isn't a Marvel comic book.
It's true. So his complete genetic code had been scrambled, and it had effectively stopped all cell reproduction in his body.
What a poor guy.
People say that his body was essentially dead with a soul inside it.
That's quite the description.
Yeah, right.
The guy is dead, and he just got a soul living in it.
First major effects of this was seen in his blood tests. His white blood cells and platelet counts were dangerously low, which made him highly susceptible to infections, mold, and bacteria, as well as making it very difficult to stop any type of bleeding.
So his body's just having all of his defenses just crash. He's susceptible to all these diseases, infections, and
his
kidneys are failing. All his organs are failing. His hand hurts. His eyes are red. He's just
So the hospital's like, okay, so maybe we can save this man. He can't just stay in a room. He's going to die from those things. So he was transferred to a specially sterilized clean room to limit the possibility of any of these infections killing him. Okay. Ouchi was getting tired, though, of constantly being tested by the 11th day.
It took 11 days. I'd be 2 days.
Yeah. There was 13 different medical and scientific teams, and they were all conducting different tests almost endlessly on him.
He's probably not getting sleep. It's midnight. They're like, okay, we're there. Another team comes in. Hey, you ready for another 4-hour trial? Here we go.
Right, exactly.
Get the fuck out of my room. I need to sleep.
And these aren't just your average tests. It's not taking a little bit of blood. They were very uncomfortable. One test and specifically was sticking a needle into his bones and extracting bone marrow.
Jesus Christ.
Or taking literal skin samples. So just kind of sum it up, he entered the hospital relatively high hopes. He was going to get out pretty soon, but now he felt like he was being treated like a guinea pig and was begging to just be allowed to sleep, like you were saying, because they want to study him, try to figure things out, see if they can help him or what they can learn from him.
He's in pain. Now he can't sleep. Yeah. It's this guy cannot catch any break.
This is where it gets worse.
Okay, of course it does.
His external appearances also started to deteriorate. Okay, when medical tape was removed from his chest, the skin underneath it peeled off with it, and it refused to heal. All right, because again, cells don't replicate. Blisters had begun to appear on his hands, and when they washed him, the top layer of his skin would rub off when they tried to dry him with a towel. An X-ray had been performed showing a shadow on his lungs, suggesting a building of fluid.
Were you this week, were you just what is the nastiest, most gruesome thing I can fucking talk about on my show?
Dude, it's a really interesting study, though. And I just try to think about where his mind's at, because he's probably still wow, this is really bad, but I think it's going to get better. No, dude. The chips are down and you lost your money.
They're washing you and your skin is coming off. Yeah. They're washing your skin away.
So back to the lungs. In order to remove the fluid and return his breathing to normal, they pierced his chest with a needle and forced air into his lungs via a face mask. During this procedure, he was said to call out for his mother and beg them to stop.
Why are you laughing?
This is meh. I don't know. Feels horrible.
This
It's a
is
defense.
very bad.
Yeah.
Oh, you're laughing to prevent from crying.
Yeah, fuck
I
you.
see.
This endless testing had a massive toll on his mental state.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
When the nurses tried to comfort him, instead of joking, he screamed out, "I'm not a guinea pig."
Oh, my God.
His breathing worsened after that. There wasn't enough oxygen getting to his blood. The only solution was to insert a breathing tube into his windpipe. This helped his body get oxygen, but he could no longer speak anymore. The nurses recorded in his records that he said, "I'm in pain and I'm suffering." And that was the last thing he said when they put the tubes in him.
Wow. Wow. That's the last thing the guy said. I'm suffering and I'm in pain. Or I'm in pain and I'm suffering. Really?
Yeah. So Hisashi was pumped full of many different drugs. Some of these were still going under clinical testing and had not been approved for use in Japan. It appears that Hisashi was right about being used as a guinea pig. Although at this point he was still not able to speak, he was still fully conscious. It's very important to point that out. Reports show that he was able to nod and answer questions. He also would respond to people calling his name. He started to move his body incessantly, as if he was constantly contorted in pain. At night, they had to sedate him in order to fall asleep. The damage to his skin continued to intensify. By day 27, almost all of his skin was damaged and peeling off, leaving Hisashi as if he had burns all over his body. But unlike a burn victim, the damage to his chromosomes meant that his body would never regenerate fresh skin to replace his damaged
Jesus
flesh.
Christ.
Yeah, I know.
Are we almost done? Because this is... You still have like 7 paragraphs.
We're almost there.
Fuck.
There was also evidence that his muscles were, necrotizing? So basically dying. Large amounts of myoglobin was detected in his blood. High levels of myoglobin is usually detected in blood of earthquake victims after they've been crushed under building rubbles for days.
So, being crushed... Like
It's basically it's talking about how their muscles just break apart. and
Okay.
shit.
So it's like muscle clumps in your blood, essentially.
Breakdown of muscles,
Yeah.
things like that.
Ugh.
So it's like his muscles were apparently damaged and starting to die, essentially. Like they were just deteriorating.
Muscles,
rotting
organs, eyes, skin. Cool. Add it to the list.
Yeah. To top things up, his mucus lining and his intestines started to decay. He started to have thick green diarrhea and his body wouldn't absorb any nutrients. In short, he had started transforming into a corpse while still being alive. An antiseptic dressing was applied to his entire body each day by a team of 10 people. It would take 2 to 3 hours to change the dressings, and each time, more and more of his skin would come off, stuck to the bandages.
Okay. Not to sound insensitive, but can you imagine having that job where you're one of those 10 that has to dress this entire man's body in antiseptic stuff, knowing full well that when you peel those bandages off, skin, muscle is coming with it, and then you have to put more on?
Well, there's a morality issue to it. I mean, in my opinion, you should kill the person.
I completely agree. They said he
Let
is
him
like
go.
he is like a corpse that's living. Why are we keeping this guy alive?
Yeah. So speaking to the eye part that you were saying, the skin around his eyes were so damaged that they were stuck open, even when he was asleep.
Oh.
Yeah. Sometimes his eyeballs would bleed, making him look like he was crying tears of blood.
Wow. I don't have any words anymore, bro.
Remember his picture when he got to this hospital. You know, he looked fine.
Yeah, he just looked like he just woke up from having his wisdom teeth removed, and he looks like he's comfortable and
A normal dude.
slightly high. Like, hey.
So by day 50, almost all of his skin had fallen away. He was losing 2 liters of blood per day through his raw flesh.
Okay, so you said 50 days.
Yeah, we're day
point.
50 right now, yeah.
Jeez.
Doctors attempted to give him skin grafts to stop the fluid loss, but because the flesh was constantly weeping, the grafts would move around and they refused to stick.
Oh.
He also continued to have diarrhea, but now there were large quantities of blood in his stool, meaning that his bowels were rupturing. You know, the worst part about this is he was still completely conscious. Although he wasn't able to move or talk, he still moved his eyes and grimaced in pain every time he was touched.
Yeah.
Like when you're
I wonder
burnt,
why.
you know? Like, dude, it hurts.
Oh, you're
But-
comparing this to a burn.
That's the only way that I could rationalize it, right? I can't, but that's the closest way I can.
Well, I don't even know how to
Yeah, it's way farther
I don't,
past that.
I don't get queasy. I don't get like uncomfortable, but you've crossed a line with me, Cleet. This subject right here. Just
Sorry, man.
no, I mean you're good. It's just when you made the little plug at the beginning, I was like, okay, well, expect, but not this level of insane. I'm sorry, folks.
The medical team was starting to lose morale. They all knew that Hisashi would not survive, and many began to question the morality of keeping him alive for so long. Literally, I probably should have gone within 30 days.
Yeah, 30. That's even.
Well, it
vicious.
seems like it just compounds, his issues. Like it seemed like he was in relative pain, but at least you give him time to like say goodbye to his family,
Okay.
Like there's like coming to peace with your death. But at this point, it's so over the top. Like living is causing him so much pain. And that's where I come with that assumption. On day 59, his heart stopped 3 times in a row. Instead of letting him die each time, the doctors would administer drugs and use cardiac massage to restart his heart. By this point, it seemed that Mr. Hisashi was trying to die and doctors wouldn't let him.
Wow. It's great. That's great.
After the cardiac arrest, his kidneys ceased to function, requiring him to be placed on dialysis. He was still losing 10 liters of fluid a day through his exposed flesh and diarrhea, meaning that his fluids had to be constantly replaced.
So they're just pumping him full of fluids through this IV just for him to expunge it.
Again, this is all just getting information, in my opinion, at this point. They're just studying him.
They know he's dead. They're like, okay, we just need to do everything we possibly can because that's the moral high ground there.
For science. The only good thing that happened at this point was he stopped responding to any stimulus after this. One can hope that he just was not conscious anymore. He didn't seem to react when touched or spoken to. I hope he was gone. But, it's been about 2 months of agony for this guy. I hope he was gone. The one thing that might point against this is his pupils did react when light was shown in his eyes.
So there's still like brain
function
in there.
His condition kept getting worse and worse. All of his organs started failing. No matter how many drugs they pumped into his body, nothing seemed to help. At day 81, doctors decided that there was no point of keeping him alive any longer.
So
right?
81 days.
Yeah.
Wow. Almost 3 months at this point, and the doctor's like, "Yep, we've reached this conclusion. We're done with this guy."
So, with the consent of his family, Hisashi was given a do not resuscitate order. The amount of administered drugs were slowly reduced, and it caused his blood circulation to slow down. The decreased blood flow caused mold to appear on his exposed flesh. Within 2 days, his heart stopped beating completely. After 83 days of torture, Hisashi had died. An autopsy had showed that every muscle and organ in his body had died and started to decay before he died. Everything except his heart. By day 83, it was nothing more than a rotting corpse with a beating heart inside it.
Okay.
You want to see the end picture?
What?
This bothered me, dude. Like, I looked at this like a year ago. It bothered me a lot.
I mean, you ask in a way that like I can decline, but I kind of want to see it. I'm assuming we can't put this.
I'm not going to put this on YouTube, but you can find it on Reddit.
Only on Reddit?
Yeah. I don't know anywhere else.
Okay. Oh my God. There's no way.
That's him.
Oh Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, that's dark.
Yeah. So for for those at home that are getting the audio experience, you probably don't want to look at it. I mean, we'll put the before and then just listen to the episode and picture it, and then just make it 10 times worse. That's
if you want to look, rough. You can look. I wouldn't recommend it. I happened to stumble across it one night on Reddit, and it gave me the
while you're in bed trying to sleep.
Chills. Yeah, it was bad.
You search for the stupidest things when you're trying to sleep. It's like, oh, man exposed by radiation, worst in history, after effects.
Yeah.
Is that like your hashtags?
Dude, radiation's a hell of a thing. Just, my God. Anyways.
Yeah, so, thanks for that one. So, on for your daily dose of happy energy here. Yeah, so cool. Radiation is bad. If you see someone dumping a bloody sheep behind a church, call the police first.
You see some blue light? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry about it. Cool. So anyway, thanks again for joining us. Again, we really do sincerely apologize that we aren't able to do weekly every now and again. Our hopes now, we're pretty clear. as long as we're not exposed, as long as Utah doesn't shut down and make it a criminal offense to hang out. We'll be doing weekly episodes still. Thanks for sticking around. If you have any suggestions, enter theabysspod@gmail.com.
And as always, thank you for entering the abyss.
Until next time.